All right. Thank you so much for joining me, Ashlee.
Of course.
Um, so Ashlee and I met. I actually did an interview in her group, and then I saw you posted something about your story, and I was like, "Holy cow! Why didn't I ask you that?" So then I felt so bad. I was like, "Why didn't I ask her? I should have done that." So yeah. Anyway, I'm so glad that you're here to talk to us, and I'm just gonna let you. I'm just gonna get this on my phone here. Okay, we got Carolyn watching. Good. All right, so I'll just let you get started with your story, and if I have questions, I'll jump in.
Sure, sure. So, what would you like me to share? Where would you like me to take this? What intrigued you about my story?
Well, um, like I like the part of the story where you had already lost a baby, and then your next pregnancy, how
Mhm.
there was so much trauma around that, and but I love also how you've been able to come through all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, just
All
start
right.
wherever you want.
Sure, I'll share. So a little bit about me. I'm a life and a business coach for moms. I help moms take their ideas and put them into action. A lot of my clients are the multi-passionate type A people pleasers, and I help them like really dig through all of that, like how to be a little bit less type A, but embrace it at the same time. How to break down the people pleasing ways in order to be there for ourselves and commit to ourselves and really set boundaries. And then the multi-passion piece is where, like, if we have all of these business ideas, I help them really dig through them to really figure out like what they feel aligned with and they're passionate about, so that way they can monetize on their passion and their purpose, so that way it aligns with their lifestyle. How I got there to share my a little bit of my journey and how I've gotten here. So when I was younger, I was, quote unquote, identified as the child with the IEP, the learning disability. It was something that I was constantly up against all of my childhood. I didn't necessarily like school, but I didn't hate school. But I was the type of student who had to try. And I had to try so hard. My brother, he'd be studying and he'd be like, oh, I got this. And I just look at it for 10 minutes and I got it. I really had to try in school. So I just felt like I always had like this stigma attached to me since I was a young kid, like, oh, the child with the IEP who needs the extra help. And I'm the type who are like, if you tell me I can't do it, watch me. So I have gone, so I started off in trade school from there. So I've gone from trade school to graduate school. And then I just started collecting all of these certifications. So I was a certified cosmetologist. I did hair and nails and everything for about 6 years. And then I've always found beauty in the breakdown. So when my grandfather passed away, he was always telling me, like, Ashlee, you have so much to learn, so much to give. Like, go to college, go to college. Because my mom was valedictorian of her class. And she decided to go, the route of like, just let me go get a job, let me do this. She never went to college, but she was really college material. So he wanted to see that for me. So when he passed away, I was like, I'll just go to college. I'll go for business so I can own my own salon, whatever that looks like. And that whole college journey, like, was really a growth experience for me. Like, I exposed myself to so many different people that I would never have met. I was in the honor society. Like, I was involved in all of these different.
Wow.
Yeah. So, uh, nothing that I've ever expected. I'm like, everybody told me I couldn't be a college student. I didn't ever be college material. So I went through community college, went to university, Rutgers University, and then I actually went from there and I went to graduate school. So I have my bachelor's in childhood studies, psychology, and teacher preparation. And I have my master's in administration of human services. So that was like my
How
win.
good.
That was my win.
Yeah,
I'm like, I proved you guys wrong.
exactly. That's what I was gonna say. Like, how good did that feel?
It felt great, but also now looking back on it, like, it wasn't aligned with me because I always had that, like, I am the black sheep in my family. I always felt like I had that stigma attached to me. And I was constantly coming out of the action of like trying to prove people wrong. Like it wasn't really aligned with like who I was. I was just kind of like up against this thing, like, okay, well, if you tell me I can't do it, I'm going to go do it. But the things that I were doing, I was avoiding what I really wanted to do. Like I always wanted to have my own business. I always wanted to do something on my own, but I was attached to that stigma and really like those people pleasing ways of like, if they tell me I can't do it, I'm just going to go do it because I want to prove them wrong. And I was ignoring the fact, bless you.
Sorry. Thank you.
And I was ignoring that fact that I really wanted to like own my own business, jump into my own thing. I was super multi-passionate. People tell me all this. I actually have like a reference from like one of my bosses that says she's a Swiss Army knife of skills. And I was like, I am. Like people tell me like all the time, I'm like, I can do your hair, I can do your makeup, I can, you know, do a pedicure on you. I can help you launch a business. I can help you get into college. There's so many different things that I've done because I felt like I was always like switching jobs every 2 years, and I was always in so many different areas. And it really affected, like I suffered from anxiety, so it really affected my anxiety and stuff. So as this has gone on, my college journey. So I entered into just going to college when my grandfather passed away. And then I was like, I'm just going to get my associates. Well, during my graduation, I found out that my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go and get my bachelor's. I want to do this for my mom. And a year later, right before I was about to graduate with my bachelor's, my dad got diagnosed with kidney cancer. And I was like, you know what? I need to find something else to do. Like, I want to be like, so I want them to be proud of me, and I want them something to like to remember me by. So, my dad got diagnosed, and then my boyfriend of 7 years, I found out he cheated on me. It was a very dark time for me. Both my parents going through cancer and treatments and stuff at the same time. My boyfriend broke up with me of 7 years. My brother was completely checked out because he just couldn't deal with it. Like he dealt with it in different ways, where I was like, what can I do? How can I help? He dealt with it in different ways. So I felt like I had the world on my back, and I was like, what can I get involved in? I quit doing hair. I got involved on campus. I felt I met a really amazing mentor. Like he is my person till this day. Like he's still rooting me on. We still keep in contact. And he helped me open up like just avenues like of a whole new world. And I feel like those experiences and like putting myself out there and really just figuring out like this aligns with me and who I am, and not the people pleasing ways and like trying to prove people wrong all the time, got me into this journey for sure. So graduated with my master's degree. I dabbled in social work for a little bit, mental behavioral health. I worked in higher education for a very long time. I would say about like 6 years, launching ground up programs, like developing programs and doing those things. This is very long-winded. Is this what you're looking for?
No, this is great. I love it.
So I was developing programs, and I just, like I said, my resume was changing every 2 years. Like I was just getting so bored. Like I just felt like it was like this monotonous thing. Like hated working for people. I was always trying to innovate and like create new ideas. And like my bosses were like, Ash, you need to slow down. Like these are our processes and this is what we do. Like, we don't need to be changing things all the time. And I just felt like I felt like I was stuck. I felt like I was a prisoner. And so I got pregnant with so in my last 9 to 5 position that I left before launching my business, I got married. I got pregnant for the first time. I lost my child at 12 weeks. And I was always told that I would never be a mom because I suffered with like PCOS, and I was constantly in and out of the doctor all the time and for hormonal issues. And, I dived into like really healthy eating and ways that would, really fit the mold of like supporting my hormones, supporting my anxiety, those foods that would really help me out. Kicking the coffee, like I had to quit drinking coffee because I realized that it was making my anxiety like 80 million times. And I was a dehydrated mess. But I'm going to get into like the food piece because I know that this is what your arena is. So where was I?
So you got married, you had your first,
Yes. So
or lost your first, yeah.
So I always was told I wouldn't be a mom, so it was like a blessing to me. So I lost my first at 12 weeks. It was a very eye-opening moment for me because, like, even though it was 12 weeks, like I still heard my baby's heartbeat. I was still that baby's mom. That baby is the one that made me a mom from the get-go and gave me hope. Like that was my hope to actually like become a mother and be a mother, whether it was my first or my last. It was a silent miscarriage, so I didn't even know I was miscarrying. So I went to my anatomy scan or around that appointment, and I found out that there was no heartbeat, and it was devastating. So I was out of work for 3 months, just on my couch, kind of like healing and like going through the process. One of my doctors said to my husband and I, "You can either wait 3 cycles and make sure that your body like heals up," or she like winked at me and she was like, "You're extremely fertile right now." Because I had to get a D&E and all of that. So I'm sure like all the sludge is cleaned out. So it's like a clean, fresh.
Exactly.
So my husband and I decided, what the heck, let's go all in. I have a beautiful, almost 2.5-year-old now. And I had a beautiful pregnancy. I absolutely 100% love being pregnant. I was super, super sick, like super sick. But other than that, I felt great. I had great energy. I felt awesome. I actually felt like my hormones were actually balanced for the first time rather than the PCOS hormones.
Yes.
But I had a beautiful pregnancy. And then one day I'm sitting there at my desk, 36 weeks pregnant, and I've been having back pain like all week long. And I'm just thinking, okay, it's like an elbow in my rib, or, the baby's positioned weird, but it got like so overbearing. And I have a high pain tolerance that I was like pacing around my office. And then I was like pacing around the hallways in the department. And I'm like, something's wrong. Something's really wrong with me. And so I called one of my best friends and I'm like, listen, you told me I would know when I'm in labor, and I'm not really sure if this is it because it's in my back. She's like, well, is it back labor? And I'm like, no, I don't feel any contractions. Like I'm 36 weeks pregnant, and it was super scary because of my loss before. So I'm working at a medical school. I'm working at Rowan University Medical School. I go into my boss, who's a doctor, and I'm like, hey, I have a personal issue. Like, I need you to help me out. And she's like, you seem like really uncomfortable, but I don't think you're in labor. Like, I don't feel you contracting or anything. She's just like holding my stomach, like trying to like assess me while I'm like packing. So I go to her and she's like, I think you're okay, but you seem like you're really in a lot of pain and really in discomfort. So, but you need to go to the ER. She tried to drive me to the ER, but I felt really uncomfortable. So I call my husband, who's coming home from an interview, and he like got the job. He's super excited. I'm like, hey, like I think I'm in labor, and I think you need to meet me at the hospital. I'm driving myself there now, and he's like, okay. And I could just hear it in his voice. He's saying, like, he's thinking, it's her anxiety. She's freaking herself out. We'll go out, we'll get jacked, and we'll come home. We never came home. So he's like, well, I got the job. I'm like, can you grab my phone charger? He's like, anything else? My bag wasn't even packed. Like, I didn't even have my bag packed yet for the hospital.
Oh, yeah, you're not ready at 36 weeks.
Yeah. So I'm like, I guess my phone charger? I don't know. So we go in. Long story short, they assess me. And I'm like, no medical students, please, because they're all my students. Like all the medical students who are my students. I'm like, no medical students. If it was something else, like, yeah, but you're not all up in my business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we go in and they do like all their assessments, like all the doctors come in, whatever. And I'm like waiting so long for my doctor to come in. I give the urine sample and the nurse goes, oh no. That's ugly. And I'm like, okay. And then they take my blood pressure, and then they take it again. And then they take it again. And then again. And I'm like, okay, I don't know. And I'm telling you, I had a beautiful pregnancy. I wasn't swollen. I wasn't tired. Like I occasionally like was up at night, like, like when you get to like a point, like you're up at 3 a.m., like bug-eyed, like, what do I do? I wasn't swollen. Every time I went into my appointments, like my blood pressure was fine. Everything was fine. So this was like out of the blue. So they say, we're going to monitor the baby overnight. We're going to monitor you, this, that, and the other. And then my doctor finally comes in. She's like, hey, listen, you're either spending the rest of your pregnancy in the hospital or you're having the baby this weekend. She was like, I can't tell you what's going to happen. She was like, the baby's a little bit in distress, like his heart rate's dropping, this, that, and the other. I'm like, okay. So they won't let my mom back in triage, only my husband. So my mom's like out in the waiting room, like texting her like that. And she's panicking because my whole family, like they went through that loss with me. They lost, somebody too. So we didn't tell my husband's parents yet because my husband's parents had losses of their own and had like a similar situation. And we didn't want to freak them out. So they assigned me to a room. We go up to the room. They hook me all up to everything and anything. And I'm starving. Like this girl needs her food. I'm starving.
Me too.
When I drove myself to the hospital, I didn't have lunch yet at work because I was so sick all the time. So I think it was like, God, maybe 3 days until I ate. I was so hungry.
Oh my gosh.
Hungry. So they hooked me up to everything. They were monitoring the baby, and this is like a PTSD moment for me because I was there when my grandfather died. Like I watched him go, and I held him afterwards, the whole 9 yards, and it took me back to him, exiting this world and the machines going off and me screaming at the nurse. And I'm like, can you just turn the machine off? I don't want to hear it anymore.
Yeah.
Lining, but they're like, we have to track everything, sweetheart. So I'm having this PTSD moment because they have the thing wrapped around me and all I hear is the heartbeat. And it's like, going up and down and up, and I can see, Landon's heart rate dropping and going back up. And I had to listen to this all night. So I was up all night long. I was exhausted. I was bug-eyed. I actually think I was like more so like in shock where I was kind of like awake, but like I was just staring.
Yeah.
Well, my husband's like snoring next to me.
Oh my gosh. How can they sleep?
Yeah. I had really great nurses. I had really amazing nurses. They gave me the steroids to like increase the lungs in the baby, or I don't know how to explain it the best way, but so they gave me 2 shots of that, and they said, you have an appointment tomorrow morning to go downstairs and get an ultrasound. And I'm like, oh yeah, I get to see the baby, like I get to see Landon. And we go down the next morning for the appointment. Vince's parents still do not know that we are in the hospital. We go down for the appointment. The first time, like he's on the big screen. Like I've never had an ultrasound where like he's on the big screen in front of me. You can see everything going on, her measuring everything. Well, I'm 36 weeks pregnant, and she's measuring like 28 weeks, 29 weeks, 30 weeks, 36 weeks. And I'm like, I look at Vince and I'm like, something's wrong. Something's the matter. Because when I had the ultrasound, when I lost my first, they made us wait in the room for an hour until somebody came in to tell us that the baby was no longer with us. And they were trying to get my doctor on the phone so my doctor could tell me, but then the radiologist actually came in and told me. But they made us wait in the room for like an hour. So I'm like telling the lady, I'm like, listen, if something's like really wrong, like you need to tell me, but we all know they're not allowed to say anything.
Exactly.
But this big screen in front of me is telling me everything. Like something's wrong. I already know something's wrong, but something's seriously wrong now. So she turns to me and she said, hey, sweetie, whatever you usually do in order to get him to move, I need you to do it. I'm doing everything. He's not moving. She's like, he's moving, but he's not making the movements that I want him to make. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like trying to get him not moving. So long story short, we wait 45 minutes for this doctor, radiologist, like everybody to come in. And I'm like panicking, and my husband's trying to calm me down. He's like, your blood pressure is already like, it was like almost like 200 something over something crazy.
Yeah.
So we wait like 45 minutes. The doctor comes in. He delivers the news beautifully. He explains like, you have HELP syndrome, which is like the next level preeclampsia. He's like, you have HELP syndrome. The only way to cure HELP syndrome is to take the baby out of you. And the only way to save the baby is to take the baby out of you. He's like, so you're having this baby like right now. I said, so me, I'm like, okay, like, am I like, can I try vaginally? And he was like, no, you're having this baby right now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. And he explained everything to us, and his delivery was, I still to this day wish I could just hug this doctor the way that he delivered it to my husband and I. So somebody comes down with the wheelchair, and I'm like hysterically crying because I'm like, my anxiety is getting to me again. And of course, PTSD. Mm-hmm. So I go upstairs and I'm like, Vince, you need to call your parents. Like, we didn't even tell your parents that we were in the hospital yet. So he calls his parents. I think he actually called his best friend first and then called his parents and then called my parents because my mom already like was in the loop a little bit. And he's just like, baby's coming now. Okay, bye. Like, see ya. I get up to my room. There is literally, Kim, I'm telling you, there's 12 people in my room, just like all around me, like gowned up, ready to go, scrub, like not scrubbed in, but wow. Like they're gowned up. And this one's handing me paperwork. This one's talking about blood transfusions. This one's talking about, I'm going to give you medication. This one, like the anesthesiologist. And I'm just like, I looked at my husband and I was like, listen, I surrender and I trust you to make every decision that you need to make for me and the baby. And I was just like, I'm done. And I got to the point where I'm like, I don't know how I feel about a blood transfusion. Like, I've never actually thought about it. So these are the types of things that we need to be thinking about, like when we're getting pregnant and becoming a mom. Like, yes. I never even thought about those things. And I looked at him like, I don't know how I feel about that. And he was like, sign the effing paper.
Yeah. He knew how he felt about it.
And I'm like, but I don't know. He's like, sign the effing paper. So they're giving me like all these medications. My parents and my in-laws show up as soon as they're wheeling me down the hallway. I throw up all over myself.
Oh, no.
She's like, here, this shot will be to not make you nauseous. And then this medication may make you nauseous. So, and I was like, well, whatever I just threw up, you might have to give it to me again because that anti-nausea medicine didn't work. Didn't really work. So they're wheeling me down the hallway, and the nurse looks at me, and this is a little explicit. The nurse looks at me, and she goes, honey, are you prepped? And I was like, prepped? I was like, I'm 36 weeks pregnant, first of all. And second of all, I wasn't planning on having this baby. She was like, okay, so do we need to shave you? And I was like, I guess. She was like, well, we need you prepped. And I'm like, okay, they're shaving me, wheeling me down the hallway because they're like, it's a sterile environment, this, that, and the other. I was mortified.
Okay, when I had kids, they didn't prep you. Like, you didn't, they just delivered it. You didn't have to, they didn't do that.
I'm like, okay. And then I was just like, now I really surrender. So they're like doing their thing as I'm going down the hallway. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, yeah, like we can't do it while we're there because everything's sterile and this and that and the other. So, oh gosh, this is such a long story.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah. So we get to the room. I don't like I see my in-laws and my parents for like 3 seconds, and they don't even really know what's going on. They're getting my husband like fully gowned up. I get into the OR, and my husband's not allowed in yet. My husband's not allowed in until like they're actually ready to cut me open. So he's getting gowned up. I see them like bringing him crackers and stuff. I'm like, oh God, please just stick in there.
He gets to eat. How nice.
I'm like, please don't faint on me, like whatever. But they're giving it to him as like a precaution or something like that. So I'm on the table, and the anesthesiologist, I mean, I guess they have like a stigma attached to them a little bit where like they're super intelligent, but that's not the friendliest people, but because they're always in the zone, like they always have to be like on the job. My blood pressure is so high, Kim, like it was like 200 and something over. It was like ridiculous. Like I don't even remember them now. Like, but I know that they were in the 200s. the machine's going, blah, bling, blah, bling, blah,
Right.
bling. And it's making me panic even more and more. I'm like, can you shut that off? He's like, I can't. And I'm like, can you just turn like the alert thing off and watch it with your eyes? He's like, I can't. And he's like, sweetheart, like you need to calm down. I'm like, I can't because the machine is telling me I'm dying. Like, and so he's start like I see the anesthesiologist like start to panic. He's like, he's like, doctor, like I can't push these meds until her blood pressure goes down. And he's like, I can't give her this until that goes down. And then it got to a point where he's like, I need to get my supervisor. So the supervisor comes in, I hear them whispering, and all I hear from her is like, I don't care if she's allergic to it, push it. To this day, I have no idea what it was. I have no idea what it was. And whatever they gave me, it worked.
Wow.
Thankfully, whatever they gave me, it worked. So my husband comes in, Landon comes out crying, which was phenomenal. And they gave me the spinal, and I'm like leaning over into my gynecologist like bosom area, and I'm just like hysterically crying, and she's like petting my head. And my gynecologist is like this nice, gentle, like soft spoken, like, Ashlee, it's okay. Like, and thankfully she was the one out of the practice who was there for this, because my other gynecologist who handled my miscarriage, she's like straight to the point, like honest, straight shooter, just like I am. And I love her too. But like in the scenarios that you're in, I'm like, I'm so grateful that it was her to be like, oh, Ashlee, it's okay. You're just getting a spinal. You need to calm down on me. With my miscarriage, my other doctor, she was like, we need to get her like in and out. I don't want her seeing these pregnant women. She needs to get in and out. Like, what's the hold up? Let's go. Because they were delaying my surgery. So it was good to have both doctors in different scenarios. Right. Just like we need different coaches and personalities in different scenarios, right? So Landon comes out, beautiful, screaming, crying, and I'm shivering on the table like this. I think they say like the Pitocin or something like that makes you like shake and shiver. Okay. Had me strapped down, so I'm like,
oh my gosh.
So they whisk my baby and my husband off, and I don't see them. I'm in recovery by myself, and I'm FaceTiming my baby in the NICU and watching everything that's being done. Oh. And the one nurse actually kind of lightened the mood a little bit. She's like, hey, honey, can you lift your legs up for me? And I tried to lift my legs, and that was funny because I had the spinal. Everything was numb. And so I asked if my mom could come back in recovery with me, and they're like, no, sorry, she can't. So from recovery, they brought me back, but they had to put me back on magnesium. So I didn't have a seizure, so I didn't have a stroke, like all of that because of my blood pressure. But they took me off of the magnesium before I had Landon so I could remember things. The only way I can explain magnesium is death. Because it kicked my butt. I don't remember the 3 days after having Landon. They had me on magnesium for 3 days. I was like hanging over the bed rails in my room. I couldn't understand like anything. My husband kept trying to explain to me that my son's feeding schedule is like 12, 3, 6, 9, and something else. And I'm like, well, they don't feed them at night. He's like, no, babe, like it continues like 12 p.m., 12 a.m., 3 p.m. Right. 3 a.m. And I kept asking the same questions over and over and over and over again. And my husband kept leaving the room to go out and take care of our son, like do skin to skin, like do all the mom stuff. And I kept asking him where he was going. And I could not understand the concept of the fact that he was leaving to take care of our child.
That must have been so scary for your husband.
Yeah. And I think I was the worst, like the day after I had Landon, because they were hanging bags and bags and bags from me. And I remember them saying, like, your blood pressure is getting a lot better. Like, we're going to take you off the magnesium at 1 o'clock. I'm telling you right now, like I put a timer on, I was staring at the clock, the seconds, like I was counting every minute until they took me off this medicine because they had ice bags all over my whole body. My mom and my husband had to like rub the gas bubbles out of my back because I was in agony. Like I was in so much agony. So I'm counting down to like the 1 o'clock. This B word nurse. I love her because she was amazing. But in that moment, I was like, ah! She comes in at like 11:30. She's like, I'm sorry, honey, we have to hang another bag. I'm like it's not 1 o'clock yet. And I was like, when is it over? So I think so my mom and my mother-in-law met my son before I did. They both went out. I didn't want to take that, but they wanted to see him so badly because I know that they were going through this with me. Like,
Right.
So they went up to the NICU and they met him. I met him briefly in the OR, briefly, but they went up to see him. I met him 4 days later, still a little out of it. Like I had a rash all over me. I think that might be the medicine that I was allergic to. I think I'm allergic to a lot of like antibiotics, like sulfa and amoxicillin and stuff. And one of them gives me a really bad rash. I had like patches and rashes like all over me. But I went up there and it didn't click until my husband like gave me a shower and he, blow dried my hair and stuff. And then like the next day I was finally like, I think once the medicine got out of my system more and more and I was able to eat, it was good. So from there, it was a really long journey. We spent 3 months in the NICU. Landon was 3 pounds when he was born. And my husband was working the whole time that he was in the NICU, like the whole time. And I'm recovering from a C-section.
Oh, right. Because your husband just got the new job.
Yeah. So
oh, gosh. Yeah.
So he actually didn't take the new job. They actually held a spot for him. His company, he works for them now, but his company is phenomenal. They actually held the new spot for him. He was working in his current position, like half days, and I don't even know how he did it, honestly. But I was recovering from a C-section, and like for the first 2 weeks, I needed rides to go see my baby. Like I needed rides to and from, and to go get blood pressure checks and all of that stuff. So it was difficult for me because not a lot of people stepped up to help me in that. I don't really think everybody understood like what was actually happening with me and what I actually really went through. So that was difficult. I think I probably started driving sooner than I was supposed to. But I was trying to heal and take care of my baby, and I was pumping. I was, exclusively pumping to bring it up to the NICU all the time. So we spent 3 months in the NICU. Landon has laryngomalacia, which is a floppy esophagus. So when he breathed when he was a baby, he'd be like, Aww. It was the cutest thing ever, but the scariest thing at the same time. So he came home on a feeding tube. That was another journey because when he came home, my postpartum depression and anxiety really kicked in. Like I wanted nothing to do with him. Like when he was not home, I wanted my baby home so bad, but when he came home, my husband couldn't get me out of bed.
Wow.
And so it hit really, really hard. And like I said, the people around me, I don't think realized like what I was really going through because I am the type of person to be like, I got it. I'm good. I can handle it. Like people think
what I do.
This really strong person and they don't really have insight on like what I'm really going through and what I'm really struggling through. So it's kind of like I hurt myself in the long run. So we spent 3 months in there. And he came home, we went through all of that. And then I have like the 9 to 5 job, like HR in my ear, like, are you coming back? Like, you don't have time left. You don't have this left.
Oh my gosh.
Because all of the time that I had was spent in the NICU. Like usually moms go back after 3 months and my baby wasn't even home.
We get a year in Canada.
So my baby wasn't even home yet. So I decided to take the plunge, quit my job, go all in on my business. I got certified as a life coach after maternity leave because like all other things, Beauty and the Breakdown, I was like, let me go get more educated because that's what I was used to. But I invested in my first life coach. I invested in my first coach. I am invested in 6 coaches by now, and it's been an amazing journey. I like to share my story because I don't want people to think that this is impossible and that all those things that, we go through, we're not able to overcome. But to tie this into like healthy living and feed and eating and stuff like that, when I transitioned from like graduate school and going into like the workforce, I was drinking like 4 Starbucks coffees a day plus soda. And I like weaned myself off of that because I knew that it was fueling my anxiety and the way that I was feeling, and really like just bringing all those bad feelings to the surface. So I like weaned myself off the drinking soda and then drinking coffee, and now I am a tea drinker. And after my son, I started like probiotics and prebiotics and all of those good things, and drinking celery juice. So I drink celery juice every morning, and drinking celery juice has actually gotten me off of all of my medications, my anxiety medications. I was on medication for PCOS. I was on metformin. I was like on all of these things. So not only have I transitioned like personally and professionally, but also like on the health end, because I'll drink a soda once in a while, like if I'm really, really stressed out. But I drink celery juice every morning. I drink tea all the time. I drink water, and coffee is like kind of like null and void for me. And I'm really paying attention to my diet and how foods like make me feel, and, you know, really diving into like the journaling around like that food makes me feel like that, or my emotions are like this, and am I eating because I'm stressed? So there has been like a lot of shifts within the past 2 or 3 years, and there's been a lot of loss, a lot of growth, a lot of stuff like that. So yeah, that's my story. And
That's amazing. Wow.
yeah, that's pretty much like part of my personal brand. I feel like people ask me how I got into this, and it's like, well, it took all of that for me to realize, like, stop trying to please other people, stop trying to show up to prove people wrong, and, you know, get into positions that just don't make you feel good. I tell all my clients all the time, you know, entrepreneurship is lonely, but it's also lonely being in a corporate job that you just don't feel like aligns with you. And then you bring that home, and then you come home and like you're this terrible person because all these other people over here that don't make you feel good sucked all that energy out of you. And it's like the one thing that America allows us to change, right? Like you lock into a car payment, you're stuck in a car payment. You lock into a mortgage, you're stuck in your mortgage. But you sign on to a job, and all you have to do is write a little 2-week resignation letter, and you can change that any day of the week, right?
It's so scary to do that.
Yeah, it is, because it's that it's like that solidarity. It's like that the secureness and that secure income. So I talked about this in my Facebook group today, like creating our own company culture. Like we are our culture of our company when we become our own business. So we need to make sure that we're like taking care of ourselves and showing up for ourselves and committing to ourselves and doing that self-development work. So that way our business can reflect who we are and the people that we attract.
Well, and I loved how you were talking, even sharing with us about the depression and the anxiety, because all the month of April, we're actually talking about anxiety. So it's nice to hear from someone else who has come through it, and how changing the way you eat has made a difference. Journaling, writing down the feelings, and recognizing I'm feeling this way. Why am I reaching for food? So I love that you've tied that all in. But what do you think when you were going through the postpartum depression? Because I went through it as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, back when I was having my kids, because my 3rd child right now is 25. So depression was still had a really bad stigma to it. And I didn't even know what it was at first. Like I hadn't heard of postpartum depression.
Yeah.
So what did you do once you realized you had it? Like I wasn't bedridden. I wasn't, mind you, at that point, I had 3 kids at home. I kind of couldn't be bedridden.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm really thankful I had my sister, because she came over a lot and just helped me out. But how did you manage to get to the other side of it?
So I have battled like anxiety and depression like all of my life. It's actually like a genetic thing in my family.
Yeah.
So I was in therapy since like the 8th grade. I was bullied very badly in middle school, and my mom got me hooked up with a therapist and everything like that. She's like my go-to person. She's still my therapist per se, but I'm not like actively like in therapy
Right.
anymore. But I think like just like taking that jump to know that, you know, going and asking for help, it's okay. Like it's okay to go and ask for help. Just like at work, like it's okay to ask for help, or if you need help as a mom, it's okay to ask your husband for help, you know? So taking that first step to understand like you need to help yourself in order to help others and be present and be there for your children and for your family or friends or whoever that is in your life and your support system. And then identifying like your bad habits, identifying like the things that you love to do. So me, it was really like I kind of didn't have a choice. My husband's like, get out of bed. Like I have to go to work. Like you have to take care of the baby. And like I said, people who showed up were very like slim to none.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't get approved for nursing. So, but it was also slim to none because I wasn't like the open book. I wasn't
Well,
the
that's
open
what,
book.
yeah, I was going to ask you that. Did they even understand how bad it was?
Now I have friends who like turned around to me after they had babies in the NICU after we did. And they say like I'm so sorry that like I wasn't there more. Like now I get it. Unless you walk that NICU journey, you don't really understand it. It's like a whole nother planet. Like you are on a whole nother planet for God knows how long. You're counting the days. It really is like a whole different planet. Like I was sleeping 3 hours a night. Like I hear moms are like, oh, they were up 2 times last night. And I'm like, I wish that my infant, like he came home at 3 months old. Like I missed that whole infant stage, like that whole infant stage. And my husband and I were like working in shifts because he was tube fed around the clock, just like the nurse would at the hospital. So I was functioning off of like 3 hours of sleep. I don't know how my husband did it. He was working off of 3 hours of sleep. I don't know how he didn't get fired. But really just like asking for that help, being an open book, being honest, like about like what you're going through and identifying the things that like make you feel good. Like what lights you up, what makes you happy, what makes you feel on fire. And for me, it was like, they always say like what you give is like usually what you need.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed help. Like I need people to understand me. I needed people to help me. So I went out and I looked for help. Like I went and I looked about life coaching because I always wanted to become a certified life coach. So I looked for somebody to help me. And then I jumped into some like supportive Facebook groups, like with NICU moms in it and oral aversions and tube feeding. And Landon went through a surgery to get the G tube too. So that was another like obstacle that we had to overcome. And seeing my baby go through surgery was super difficult because
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I already saw him attached to monitors and this and that and the other for 3 months. So really identifying like what you love and, what really makes you feel at peace, whether that be like crafting or art or whatever that thing is for you. Asking for help, being a little bit more open and honest in your communication with the people around you rather than kind of like sheltering them out to make them think that you're okay, but you're not okay. And then doing your due diligence to like do the research about like support groups, Facebook support groups, in-person support groups, and finding the right therapist. Just because you take that leap and you find one therapist and you're like, I don't like this person, you need to try out a few. It's usually, from being in the mental and behavioral health field, it's usually like between 3 and 5 therapists until you find your good fit, just like a coach. So that's pretty much how I got through it. Like I knew like coping skills and stuff like that to utilize because I was in therapy for so long. But if this like comes out of the blue, out of nowhere, really just taking some time for yourself, like talking to my therapist, going through the anxiety and depression after having Landon. She said, I don't care what you do. I want you to take 30 minutes a day. Go take a drive, go to Target, walk around, whatever makes you feel a little bit more normal and connected to the person that you were before you became a mom. That way you can feel that like normalcy that's like kind of coming back to you, so you feel like your own person. She even said to me, she was like, Ashlee, listen, like, I went through the same thing. She had twins. She's like, Ashlee, I went through the same thing because like for the first 4 months, like these little shits don't even smile at you until she was like, it's literally like they're sucking the life out of you. Like they're sucking the sleep out of you. They're sucking the energy out of you. They're sucking
the milk out of you.
And that's the type of therapist that I needed to, like, you know, kind of make it a little bit funny and kind of like be real with me, you know, like this is going to feel a little shitty for the first 4 months. But when you see that baby smile at 4 months and they're smiling at you, you know, there's no interaction for like the first 4 months, she said to me. She's like, there's none. But you have to understand that like what you instill in them in the first 3 to 4 months is going to pay off.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So I still remember that conversation because I'm like, this little shit better smile soon.
Oh, that's so great. And so what was it? Oh, you were just doing a live in your group a few weeks ago, and it was great having your son in the background, sitting in his high chair, eating markers, just having fun. But you know what was great from our side was watching you be real and not pretending that you're in a perfect world, but like, no, hey, I got my kid here, and I may have to take my microphone off and go deal with him. Yeah. And I think more people need to realize that's what we're all looking for, is we're looking for someone to be real. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I even stopped that live and I'm like, just let me know if he's eating markers behind me, because I'm trying to pay attention here. Like, just let me know. Just hit me up in a comment if he's eating markers. For some reason, like, I don't know, arts and crafts are like my jam, but they're not his jam. Like, when it comes to crayons or markers or anything arts and crafty, he's kind of like, I'm going to put it in my mouth so she makes me stop doing this stuff.
Yeah, I had one like that. I have 4.
Yeah, he's an outdoorsy, like, let me climb, go into the mulch and trees and climb the trees. Like, he's definitely an outdoorsy kid.
And so how is he doing physically now?
He's great. He's amazing. Good. I would say, and honestly, to be honest, like, I got him off of the tube, and this was a huge pivot for me personally and professionally. I got him off the feeding tube. Like, doctors, therapists, everybody was told me he would be on a feeding tube until he was like 2 to 3 years old. And I, like, that'd be like my life still now, like him on a tube. And I cannot imagine that. But I was walking out the doctor, and this is where I want you to say, like, trust your intuition. Like, if you think something's happening, like, trust your intuition. Every time I talk to these therapists and these doctors who are just like sucking me dry of all of my money, plus the 3-month bill of him being in the hospital.
Right.
Not that I don't appreciate everything that everybody did for them. Let's not get it twisted.
Oh, yes. Oh, what perfect timing.
Hi. Mommy, they hurt. Mommy, they hurt.
Hi, I'm up there too. Hi. Hey, go back with Daddy, okay? Ew.
Perfect timing.
So I went to his pediatrician, who I absolutely love. And his pediatrician, when I was walking out, he said something to me. He said, Ash, just make sure that they're not overfeeding him, because sometimes they do that. And I said to him, okay, I'll take that into consideration. But the whole time, I'm like, they kept telling me he didn't have an oral version. And I'm like, I'm a behaviorist. I think he has an oral version. Like, I think this is behavioral. Like, I think this is what he was taught, like, from something taught. And everything that I kept bringing up was like conflicting. And as soon as I was walking out, and it was just kind of, you know, like when you're in a fight with your husband or in your fight with a best friend, and like they have to get the last word.
Oh, yes.
And he got like the last word. He was like, Ash, just make sure that they're not overfeeding him, because they tend to do that. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, I need to do something about this. And this is where I went into like educational mode. I came home and I researched on the computer for like 2 or 3 hours. I found an amazing book. I read the book in 2 hours as soon as it came from Amazon Prime. And I said to my husband, we're doing this program. It's all behavioral. We're doing this program 100%. And then I realized that there was a support group on Facebook. And then I realized that I could book a coaching call with her. And she would put together like this whole plan for us on how to wean him off the tube. And she's from Australia. She was like an RN. She had like all these things to back it up. We met with her, paid $200, did a Zoom call like this, had like 4 days of unlimited support with her. And I was like, oh, this is kind of like what the coaching world's look. It was like my little taste of the coaching world and how it could benefit my family. He was off the tube in 4 days.
Wow.
4 days he was off the tube drinking from bottles. And I mean, he was not drinking he was drinking 20 cc's, which is even like, I think it's like almost 1.5 ounces. That's all he could get down in like 45 minutes to an hour. 4 days he was off the tube. He was sucking bottles dry. And by that point, he was 9 months old. So I'm like, I need to start solids. Like, this kid needs solids in him. And I found her a month after we had the surgery for him for G-tube.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm just like, if my instinct didn't tell me, I would have just still been like listening. Mind you, I don't want to get this twisted. Like, doctors, therapists, all of them like have helped my family get my son to where they are. But like, just intuition and like instinct, like that mom instinct told me that my son, it was like a behavioral thing for him. Like, I didn't think that he needed all of the food that they were saying that he needed, but I know that they wanted him to grow. So we took that path and it was amazing. He was off the tube in four days. And I can't tell you how much my life changed after that tube was gone, and the monitors and the pumps and the syringes and like everything being shipped to our house. Like, that was like a whole different world in itself.
Oh, I can't imagine.
We couldn't go anywhere. Like, we had to like consistently hook him up to tubes and pumps, and like we just couldn't live. We couldn't live. And I didn't feel like it was the best way for my son to be living if there was another answer for him specifically in his situation. Yeah. I know that, you know, some cases aren't that case, which is understandable. But it was definitely a changer, and it gave me a little insight on what the coaching world looked like. So that was another reason why I was like, I need to do this coaching thing. I need to do this thing. So yeah, ask for help. That's what I have to say. Ask for help for sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had to learn to do that too, because I like to pretend that everything's just fine and that I've got it all together. And then things kind of blow up and I go, oh, okay, yeah, I really wasn't okay.
Yeah. It also hurts a little bit though, like when you are going through something like that and people know that that's your personality and they still don't ask like, are you okay? Can I be there for you? Or show up to just see you?
Yeah.
You know? There's that too, to that type of scenario for sure. But thank you for letting me share my story. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's a powerful story. And I love how you've transitioned through all of it in trying to please everybody and trying to do the things that would make everybody else happy. Yeah. And now you finally found the spot, the sweet spot that makes you happy. And what makes you shine and gives you the greatest joy. So
yeah, I mean, I'm sure that people look at me like, why is she hanging out on Facebook all the time? Like, she has a master's degree, but this is my jam. This is what I love to do. And guess what? I get to work from home.
Yes.
I don't have to answer to anybody. Sometimes it's hard though, because you have to answer to yourself at the end of the day. And if you're like, hey, like, you didn't show up for yourself today, like, you're kind of like arguing with yourself, like you're the boss against the employee, and you're like, why did you do this? Why did you do that? And you're a little hard on yourself sometimes.
So if somebody, I know we have a few girls actually in the group who are entrepreneurs. I know I have a few coaches also in the group. So if they wanted to get in touch with you, where can they find you? What do they do? Absolutely.
Yeah. So I have my own little like private nook of Facebook. It's called Business Confidence for Passion-Driven Moms. It is for new and aspiring entrepreneurs. So I am not the coach that's going to be like, hey, let's do 5K months. Let's like scale and grow. Like, I really focus on like the self-development piece, the business building piece, and how to bring those two things together, and how to, mold and bend the gap between motherhood and being an entrepreneur and what that looks like, and how to align a business to your lifestyle and that fits you and your personality and breaks down all those stigmas. So I really talk about like the developmental piece of everything and how to, go from idea into action and build a sustainable business and foundation.
That is so important. Like what I'm finding, I follow the people who say, oh, let's make 10K months, 20K months. But if you don't have that foundation, you're not going to get there anyway.
Yeah. I always say
get there once.
The coach.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
That foundation is so important.
And I bring a lot of like background into it, like the mental behavioral health, the behavioralist. Like I talk about like children's behavior and stuff. Like that's why I say I'm the life and business coach for moms, because I really talk about life and business stuff when it comes to coaching my clients. And I work with them like one-on-one, so everything's individualized. And it's just like really great to see everybody's transformation. So again, that is Business Confidence for Passion Driven Moms Facebook group. For those of you who are in the group, if you want to connect with me, I will, be, sorry, my iWatch just keeps coming off. I will be discounting my 90-minute intensives for you. So if you wanted to do a 90-minute intensive coaching session to really identify like how to get your idea off the ground, or, put together a business plan for something that you already have in place, but you're feeling a little stuck, I'll be doing 90-minute intensives with you for $297, and it's usually a 3-figure investment. So I am offering that to you and your group.
Amazing. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ashlee. This has been great. I'm so glad that I don't even remember where we connected. I have no idea.
Erica.
Erica, that's right. Yes. Yeah. So,
and I was just part of her, her mini summit with you.
Yes. Yeah. So that's awesome. Great. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my story. It's always great to talk about it because I'm kind of like, whoa.
Yeah. You've been through a lot.
Yeah.
For sure.
Now that I've told it so much, I'm like, oh, that's not that big of a story. But when other people hear it, they're like, wait, what? Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Sometimes in telling the story so many times too.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Thank you so much, Kim. I appreciate you having me.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.